You're welcome back. So the outcome of the MMDC announcements was generally calm, but there were pockets of violence, mainly within the heart of Accra and in Shreponi. We know 13 people were arrested. Shreponi is in the northeast region. Also resurrected was the criticism of government over a lack of representation and a commission district for the people of Sal, as well as whether the case for the election of MMDCEs on a partisan basis is now, more relevant and stronger than ever. Now, the governing NPP have initiated steps to calm agitated supporters, while some of the disappointed MMDCEs have condemned the violence and urged support for those who've triumphed. So now let's look at, all these issues relating to the MMDCEs. Our guests this morning, we have the Honorable Obi Amwa, Deputy Minister for Local Government. Yes. Good morning, Honorable.
Good morning,
and thank you for making some time for us today.
Good morning.
Great.
I'm happy to be here.
Thank you.
And good to see you.
Yes,
you used to be on radio.
Yes.
As well.
We also have Dr. Richard Fiadomo, who is the President of the Chamber of Local Governance, who will join us. And we will also have the NDC's Abraham Amaleba, who is the director of the NDC's legal team. We'll also speak to the first nominee to be confirmed, Mr. Bismarck Nkum of Gomwa West. But first, let me turn to Honorable Obi Amwa. So it's really been quite a busy week for you.
Certainly. And of course, the media would want to speak to us everywhere. Mm-hmm. It's really hectic.
Yeah.
It's good. At least we discuss these things and get to know what exactly the situation is. Of course, everybody was waiting for the announcement.
It was a much anticipated list.
Except that there were a few misconceptions. You hear most people saying that it's taking the president 9 months to be able to appoint the MMDCs. Okay. That is actually not the situation, because MMDCs are appointed for 4 years until they are removed or they die or resign, as provided in the Constitution, Article 243(3). So for the tenure of MMDCs, it's 4 years, but the president has the right to take them out or they can resign. So most of the MMDCs were really appointed between June and July. So if the president says that they should carry on till maybe their tenure is over, then you cannot say that they should start from January. Unlike ministers, those in the executive, which is listed under the Presidential Transition Act, who were supposed to leave office literally by midnight 6 January. So come 7 January, I was no more deputy minister. But for DCEs, they could continue, because I have a copy of it here so that we have this Presidential Transition Act, Act 845. And under the schedule, based on section 14, a list has been provided of those who have to leave office by 7 January. It doesn't include MMDCs. So if you're appointed June 2017 as a chief executive, the president could let you run your full term, and that will be June 2021. So it's after June 2021 that we could say that if your term has ended, the president should replace you or reconfirm you, or as he did, ask some of them to act to be appointed.
But that is the issue. If you ask some of them to act, then it gives the view that then they are no more in the firm capacity to undertake certain activities. They can't take major policy decisions. So if I was appointed in June 2017,
and your term ends in June 2021, yes.
But yet the president,
until you're replaced.
Yes, but yet the president writes and says, don't take any policy decision until the appointees are done.
Not really policy decisions, but the point I wanted to make was the fact that we should not start counting from January. Okay. We should look at the specific issues. When did the person come into office? Some May, some June, some July. Mm-hmm. Some even came in 2018, which means that they hadn't even run their 4 years. But so if we put that in context, it will not be that after all, in 2013, President Mahama appointed his MMDCs in July, when he came into office in January, because he allowed some of them to run their term, those who appointed under Professor Mills. And Professor Mills appointed some of them March, April. By July 2013, President Mahama appointed. These things, we have to find a way of streamlining them because they seem to be a bit confusing.
Yes,
but
there are some inconsistencies.
But the Constitution is very clear that your tenure is 4 years.
4 years. So irrespective of when you start.
Irrespective of when you start, irrespective of even the president in office, except that the president can remove you.
Yes.
So he comes into office and decides that you haven't served 4 years, but I have the power to remove you and takes you off. So if you put that in context.
What would be the way to streamline it, as you say? Last week we had Dr. Fiadomo and he will join us today. But one of the things he did say was we needed to have proper legislative guidelines.
Yes.
That provides guidance in how these things are done. Is that something the local government ministry will be looking at going forward?
Well, we have the guidelines in the Presidential Transition Act. The MMDCs are supposed to do their handing over notes with ministers, etc., 6 months before elections. But when it comes to leaving office, they are not listed under the schedule as those who should leave by 7 January, meaning that it's recognized in the Constitution that you can run your full term, just like a member of parliament, except that ours is guided in a way that
it's coterminous with the president.
With the presidents, which is not the case with MMDCs. And probably there's a reason for it, because the Constitution also says that the elections for assemblies should not be at the same time as elections for president and parliamentary candidates. There should be a gap, minimum of 6 months. So probably there's a reason for it. But what I'm saying is that if you look at the Act itself, it provides for some of these things. The way forward probably will be election of MMDCs. That one we know when you were elected, and the law will provide for when your term will end. But if you leave it that 4 years, but the president can remove the person before the tenure is up, some of these things can happen. And then when there's even no fixed guideline as to who should take charge of the assembly when the tenure ends, then you see that there's a lacuna, there's a gap which has to be filled. So obviously we can still fine-tune the legislative
within the legislative context that we have now,
yes,
to at least know that this is the way we should go.
Yes.
I think that this is one of the few times, or the first time really, that these issues have been thrown up significantly about the tenure, what the MMDCs are able to do.
Part of it is lack of understanding of the system, even how the legislation has been couched. Part of the problem. You listen to people, you see that they have not taken made special attention to the legislation.
The Presidential Transition Act.
That is part of the problem. So everybody thought, hey, once the president is in January, a few months, a few weeks, he should start announcing MMDCs. But he has the leeway to let them run their course, and he has more time to decide who should run the districts.
Now, you talk about the president having some leeway, and so he should not be in a rush because their term is not coterminous with his.
Yes.
There's criticism of this recent process, that the president has taken his time because he wants to make a case for change. A case for change in how MMDCs get into those positions, and that is through election.
Well, the president,
because obviously, yes, he has the right to appoint, he has the right to hire and fire, but then even if it's 3 months or 4, for a second term, there's a criticism that could have been better managed.
The president has not hidden his agenda. As far as is concerned, MMDC should be elected. Indeed, when...
On a partisan basis.
On a partisan basis, we come there.
Yeah.
In 2017, he said he thought that was the last time that he was appointing MMDCs. He's made it clear that he thinks that the way forward is to get MMDCs elected. But that doesn't mean that is to punish us for not agreeing that they should be elected. So he's also delaying the process. He opened the space so wide that people even felt that he was being too democratic, in a sense that some places he had 19 persons who had expressed interest in that one particular position. And these 19 persons, then guidelines were given that for the regional ministers to receive the applications, they should also have some interaction with them and then bring the number down to 4. So for each district, 4 persons' names were submitted. The president was not obliged to even do that. He could have just sat down and said, this is my list. That's what the Constitution empowers him to do. Except that he thought people should show interest, and I'm opening it up. And some of the issues we can even look at is if 19 persons applied, and then let's say 15 were cut off. The followers of the 15, we didn't hear anything about being disappointed or being rejected. So if it's cut down to 4 and 1 is picked, you don't think the other 3 should have their followers all over the place, creating a lot of unnecessary tension and sometimes even violence. That's one aspect that we have to look at. But we should also look at the fact that this is not the first time this is happening.
Oh, certainly.
Every time the
appointments are made, people are unhappy, even sometimes for ministerial appointments.
Yes. But particularly for MMDCEs, I was going through the archives more or less. And your former station, if you allow me to refer to Joy, Joy interviewed a regional chairman in 2013. And the words he used, I looked at it, I was amazed that these were based on parochial interests and ethnic interests, considerations, and that we should look at it. And I made some quotations here. I couldn't believe it. This has not happened now. But just to let you know that anytime there are these appointments and announcements, sometimes all over the country, some people express their disappointment, which is their democratic right. But it should not get to the extent of being violent or breaking the law. If you do that, then it's gone beyond the democracy that you are also preaching. Right. In which case, you can be arrested and prosecuted.
Okay, so I'll come back to you on 2 specific cases where there was a claim that those who've emerged as MMDCs in those positions were not even on the short lists, so that you can give us a bit more clarity about that process. But let's see if we can have Dr. Fiadomo, who is the president of the Chamber of Local Governance, joining us by audio. Good morning, Dr. Fiadomo. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much. So last week you were here and it was quite a hot discussion about the soon to be announced then MMDCEs list. Now it's been announced. Generally it's been calm, but of course there have been pockets of violence and disagreements. We've seen that in the heart of Accra. We've also seen that in Treponi in the northeast region. What's been your view looking at how the week has gone since the announcements were made and what the reactions have been?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that since the names were announced, of course, there have been pockets of violence, as you have said, and the Deputy Minister rightly said. We will also say that this is the first time that MMDCs have been appointed and there have been pockets of violence. But what happened this time around, which for us is unprecedented, is the leakage of the vetting committee's report to the president. And you and I and the public were indeed privy to information that should have been exclusive to the president. So now, technically speaking, whoever leaked that list just tie the hands of the president. But we know that per Article 2431 of Ghana's Constitution, it is the president who has the sole prerogative to nominate MMDCs. And even though a president puts in place a committee, there is no law enjoining or trying to ask the president to necessarily go according to the reports that come from the vetting committee. The president can also exercise discretion. And that is why we think that some of this violence were as a result. It was so spontaneous because people were expecting people who have been recommended by the vetting committee to be named by the president, but the president did otherwise. And I must be quick to say that the president has done no wrong in nominating people who were not even part of the vetting process, because it is his prerogative to nominate or appoint MMDC. So yes, there has been violence in the past, but the spontaneity with this particular one that we see is because of the leakage earlier of the vetting committee's report.
You said the president has done no wrong in appointing people who were not on the final vet list. But it raises the question of fairness, because some people would have gone through a certain process. I mean, for right or wrong, at least they faced the committee. So if someone was eventually appointed and he or she did not go through that review process, I'm just wondering, within the spirit of natural justice, it may not be fair.
Yeah, to some extent, I agree with you. But constitutionally, it is the president who is mandated to nominate. And the constitution does not talk about any processes leading to the nomination. So it was at the discretion of the president to put in place a vetting committee, while vetting was done at the region and also done at the national level. So obviously, like I said the last time, the president has intelligence information which you and I do not have. So even if the vetting committee recommends somebody to be appointed or nominated by the president, I believe, will also do some form of due diligence on the person. And so if national security or BNI think that this person that has recommended may not be good ultimately if he is nominated by the president, I'm sure they will give the president security advice and he will also act appropriately. But all that we are just saying is that whoever leaked that list technically just tried to usurp the powers of the president to nominate MMDCs. And we also know that the president was not enjoined by any law to necessarily go by the committee's report. So yes, we agree, but I do not know the extent to which it is widespread, where people who did not take part in the vetting process have been nominated by the president. I do not know the extent to which.
It's not widespread. As far as I know, it's just 2 instances that are being mentioned, for the case, of course, for the AMA or for Greater Accra, and then also for Chiriponi, which Honorable Obi Amwa will answer. But one of the things you did mention last week, and you took a very strong position on it, was the timeline that it has taken for the president to undertake these appointments. And you mentioned 9 months. Last week, Honorable Boabing Asamoah disagreed that it's about 3-4 months. But today, Honorable Obi Amwa, who is the Deputy Minister for Local Government, has been also given a different and interesting perspective, where he talks about the fact that the roles or the terms of the MMDCs are not coterminous with the president, and that even if he is not fully in office, they remain in office until their term ends. The fact that they may not be allowed to take policy decisions, it's neither here nor there. So they remain in their positions until their term ends, and then he can take his time to make these appointments. And he refers to the Presidential Transition Act that gives that leeway to the president. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you. I think this has been a consistent information coming from the government, and will not begrudge them. But as far as we are concerned, and I heard you trying to.
Hello, Dr. Fiodomo. Okay, I think we've lost him on audio. We'll get him back, definitely. But let me come to Honorable Obi Amwa. Very interesting thoughts there from Dr. Fiodomo.
Yes.
Because he mentions, and I think that's a good thing for debate, about the appointments.
Yes.
The issue of the leakage of that document. I understand an investigation is going on.
Well, obviously, we will have to find out why that document came out, even though it doesn't mean that I confirm that is the document. That is the document, yes. Sure. But the media more or less engage in speculation at a certain point, because different lists came out every time. Different lists were being churned out by various stations at every time. And we were wondering whether these were indeed authentic. And of course, some of us knew that some of the names that they were putting out were not the names to be mentioned. But of course, the prerogative is the president, is for him to announce these names. And about those not on
so we know
list.
Accra, because this unauthenticated document
Yes.
recommended the AMA chief executive then, J. Soa.
Yes.
But then it was quite a surprise to have another name
Yes.
come through, the Honorable Elizabeth Saki.
Yes.
Then you had Tripoli, where there's been a dispute over
Wow.
even the membership of this individual,
Yes.
the lady, to your party. And so the party grassroots have been quite vehement in their opposition,
Yes.
saying that it's not even whether she was even on the list or not. They don't even believe that she's part of their party. Are you able to clear that up for us?
Well, the reality is that the only appointing authority is the president. He sets up a committee. They only recommend.
He's not obliged or bound by
just
their
like any
recommendation.
institution. Even your place here, you may set up a committee, and the report comes. The person who's supposed to take action on the report may decide that it's not what I want. So, and for others to, the president may even call some persons and tell them that I want you to go and run this district, even if you haven't shown interest by appearing before my committee. Let's discuss it. At the end of the day, the person will be convinced that, okay, if you appoint me, I'll take up the challenge. So there's something like having a list. It's unlike, let's say, appointment of ministers, where the constitution says that prior approval from Parliament. So we have to appear before
and
Parliament.
And then, of course, at least 50% of them must come
Yes.
from Parliament.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in that case, you will say that your name has been mentioned, you have appeared before Parliament, you've been approved, so you will become a minister, even though the president can change you anytime. Unlike that one, this one, the president doesn't have any obligation to get a list in place, or once you've appeared before a vetting committee, that means that those who didn't appear before that committee should not have any chance at all from being appointed by the president.
Would you say that the president, and I know it may seem unfair to imagine this, but would it be fair to say that maybe the president may sometimes be informed about some of these agitations? For instance, in Tema,
yes,
we know that some of the chiefs and peoples were against Mr. Boateng also in the area, and had insisted that they wanted an indigent to come from there. And this was even prior to really the announcement. I think it was after information seemed to suggest that it would not be, the individual being chosen was not an indigenous Gang.
Was a non-Gang.
Yes.
Yes, the president will have to take into consideration several factors. And some of these things, they will weigh on his decision, because you will not say that he will not look at all these things and think that this is the best position for him and for the country. And as to chiefs coming in, a lot of chiefs would have sent petitions to the president. He may take some, he may not take some. And it's all over the country, not only the TMA situation. So once the decision has been made, the rest is for the assembly to also vote. And if the person secures the 2/3 minimum vote, then the person has been endorsed.
So what about Tripoli?
Well, Tripoli, what is coming out is that some persons were claiming that in 2016, the nominee campaigned for a different party, to be precise, NDC. But by 2020, he was actively campaigning for MPP. And they want to know whether within the 4 years he had changed parties or secured a party card. These things can be looked through, can be investigated. But the reality is that this is the name the president has announced. And then the rest is to go through the process. If the assembly endorses her, she becomes the chief executive. But the president has every right to say that for whatever months you serve, I can change you, or you stay on for the 4 years as mandated by the Constitution. So some of these things, we cast across. Sometimes
if it comes up like this, does the local government ministry get involved in trying to, strip through what is facts, what should be the way forward?
Well, we all work for the president. And sometimes if he would ask for information, it will not only be from the local government ministry, national security, all those, even the regional ministers may provide the information. But at the end of the day, he takes the decision and then we go by it. If for any reason the assembly votes for a number of times and they still don't want the nominee, then the president may be convinced that he should appoint or
Yes, as
nominate
if
a
the
new
person
person.
fails to go through 3 times.
Not necessarily 3 times. It's not stated anywhere.
Okay, that's the convention we've come to know.
You're talking about convention. Me, I'm talking
About what's in the law. Okay, so then hold that thought, and I'll come to that because
So
we
there's
know
a
that-
procedure.
Okay, so hold that thought. We'll come to that because the elections have started. But let me take Dr. Fiadomo. Yes, Dr. Fiadomo, sorry, you were making the point about the timeline for the nomination of the MMDCEs until your line broke.
Yeah, thank you. I was basically saying that it has been the chorus from government and government spokesperson that the delay is not 9 months. And I heard the minister talk about the fact that the position of the MMDCs are not coterminous with that of the president. And so clearly they are not part of the Article 71 office holders. Now, and so what was the basis for the president writing to the MMDCs on the 11th of January, asking them to move from substantive position into acting position, where he made direct reference to the Presidential Transition Act. So what was the purpose for that? So I do not understand why my term of office is not coterminous with that of the president. I have not finished serving my term, like you rightly said. All MMDCs are supposed to serve 4 years. Of course, they can be removed by the president, they can resign, or if there's death, or the General Assembly by two-thirds majority present and voting can also.
You should have been here.
Unfortunately, the line is not our best friend today, so I hope that we can fix that. Honorable Amwa, so the elections of the nominees have started.
Yes.
What's your outlook for that?
Well, a few started yesterday, and so far it's only Yendi that we've heard that the person did not get it, minimum
Yes.
2 tests.
Yes.
And for other places, the persons have been endorsed. For
Yes.
some places,
so
100%.
Goma West District,
Well,
and then Yaja Dawuni Robert for Gusho.
yes.
Yes, they've been confirmed.
in-
He has
in a-
100%.
Yes, in Ashanti region too, I think Chuma or Biaja, 100%. And most of them will start from Monday. The Electoral Commission has received a program from the regional ministers as to how they want to conduct the elections. So from Monday, most of the assemblies will hold the elections, and we are hopeful that most of them will cross the 2 tests, except that the president has the opportunity to renominate the person if he doesn't get the 2 tests.
Okay, so you were telling me it's not 3 times. So,
Yes.
Because those of us who are, at least have a bit of institutional memory know that sometimes if you don't get the 2/3 the 3rd time, then the president has to re-nominate. Tell us what is...
Well, if you look at our model standing orders, one which was made in 2019, we had an earlier one, but the 2019 is a recent model standing orders. And Order 15, it provides the procedure for approval of nominee of a president. So the first is where the person gets the 2 tests. The EC will write to the president that these persons have gone through. Where the person gets 50% or more, the procedure is that within 10 days, they can go for the elections again. The president doesn't need to say that I've re-nominated him within 10 days. But if you read Order 7 or 15.7, it says any nominee who at any time fails to pool 50% of the votes of the members present and voting may be renominated on reasonable grounds or may be withdrawn by the president. So it's not automatic. It's not written anywhere that the president, after 3 times, but it's only reasonable.
That you give it some time.
Yes, especially if, let's say, the person pulls 10%.
Or maybe the margins are small.
Yes. No, I mean, if the person's the vote is very low.
Low, okay.
The president may decide that this person cannot go through.
Okay.
No matter how many times
they contest.
Yes. So let me renominate or let me nominate another person. But if it's close, the president may say that I'm sure after still talking to the people in the assembly, this person may go through. So let me submit his name again. That is the 3rd time. So as I said, it's not that by the 3rd time the president has to, as you put it. Has to means that he's obliged. Sure. But this one is may. May withdraw or may renominate. That's how we should look at it.
All right. We have on the line now Ms. Honorable Basi Nkum. He is the Gomoa West District Chief Executive. He joins us on the line. Good morning to you, Honorable Nkum.
I can hardly hear you.
How are you, sir?
I'm good.
Great. If you can just speak up a little louder. So, congratulations are in order. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
All right. So we're told that you were the first kind of to be approved by the Gomoa West Assembly in line with all the election, in line with all the processes that have begun. But we know that a lot of it will start on Monday. So first, getting through, were you optimistic you were getting through, or you had to kind of lobby the assembly members to be sure you would go through?
Thank you. Good morning to your listeners, and let me first of all express my appreciation to His Excellency the President who gave me this opportunity. And let me say that the President in his first term also gave me the same opportunity, and in my own estimation, I think I did a very good job. So I was always expecting that if the criteria for renomination is based on what we have done, then I will not be satisfied, and that is why I'm happy that I have been renominated. So I knew this was coming, and so I have been working on my confirmation in the past 3-4 months, engaging chiefs, engaging assembly members, engaging other stakeholders, and making sure that we were good to go as soon as the nominations were announced. And so, yes, we were even going to do this on Tuesday, but unfortunately Tuesday was a holiday, and then we needed to wait and communicate again on Wednesday before we could do it on Thursday. So I was very, very optimistic that the relationship I have kept with my assembly members, the work I have done, and all that, if they were going to be very objective, then they were not going to fail the president by voting against his nominee. I was also very optimistic that I was not going to make 100% because I have been in office before, and I have taken decisions, and normally as a leader, you take a decision in the interest of the greater good of the people. And you always have the minority view who will not be happy with you. And so, yes, I knew I was going to sail through, but I also knew I wasn't going to get 100%. So I am very, very much comfortable with the 75% endorsement also.
All right. Now, one of the things that people look out for at the local governance level is accountability to the people, because there's a view that you are almost really mini presidents in your district. How are you going to ensure that you are truly accountable to the people that you are serving, knowing that there are lots of interest groups? There's the member of parliament, there are the things he or she wants to do as well, and there's the agenda that you're seeking to push through for the president.
In fact, that is what I have been doing. To be accountable to the people also calls for greater engagement with the people, with stakeholders at a very local level. And that is what local government is really about. And so almost every quarter of the 78 communities within my jurisdiction, I am able to visit all, I'm able to engage chiefs, I'm able to engage from the very least to the very highest person in our community. So this is what you do. Once you engage them, they have questions, they ask, you also respond to the person. But you don't also have to do direct engagement. That is why the assembly members are also there. You communicate to the localities also through the assembly members. So yes, that is what local government is about. So if you ask me, it's just about having the regular encounter with the people, giving them the opportunity to ask questions, giving them the opportunity also to make an input. In fact, in terms of the budget preparation, your budget wouldn't be approved, for example, if the people at the very local level are not made to participate in the process. And that is why there is what we call budget hearing. In terms of the preparation of the medium-term development plan, you can't do this without engaging the area councils, without engaging our market women, without engaging our fishermen, without engaging other interest groups within the district. And this is what I do. It's my routine duty. And so that is it. This is how we will be accountable to the people.
Now, there's the local government service, and they sign a performance contract with our MMDCEs. They release.
To be very honest with you, I am struggling to hear you.
Okay, I'll try.
Hard from my end to hear you.
All right, I'll try to speak up a bit louder. So I know that the local government service signs a performance contract with the MMDCEs, and it leads to the release of the league table. The last league table was released some 2 or 3 months ago. Central Region was like what, number 4, number 5. I know your district will have its individual rankings, but looking at the performance contract, what is your view about ensuring that you meet those targets?
So yes, the performance contract, the KPIs, which is the key performance indicators, are also taken from our own budget. So to ensure that you hit the target is to operationalize your budget with the timelines that you have granted. And once you are able to do that, then you are likely to achieve your target. Let me say that when I assumed office as district chief executive, for example, the same district league table at the time we had 215 metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies. Gumawes was occupying the bottom. That is 216 out of 216. If you look at the recent one that was released, we have climbed up the ladder to 147. Obviously, there are things that we are doing well. If you take education, for example, in 2014, at the basic level, the pass rate was 35%. 2015 pass rate was 37%. And then in 2016, we did quite well. Pass rate was 52%. In the last 4 years, we have grown the pass rate now to almost 70%, specifically 69.6. What we are working on is to ensure that in the next 4 years, we're able to get 90% pass rate. What it then means is that our children who graduate from the basic level, all of them will now have the opportunity to go through the senior high education and indeed to meet the aspiration of His Excellency the President and as the country, that we want everybody to be out of the illiteracy bracket. So this is, for example, what we are doing. We also undertook other projects. The attrition rate of teachers in the district was very, very high because teachers were not getting decent accommodation. If they were able to get one, it was difficult for them to have access to bathrooms. It was difficult for them to have access to kitchens. And so you normally find that they will normally try to eat themselves in the public space, whether bush or whatever. So we decided that we were going to have a lot of teachers quarters around the place. So far, in the last 4 years, we've been able to do about 5 or 6. The initial plan could only accommodate 3 teachers. Now we have changed that, and it is now accommodating 6 teachers. So these are the things that we have put in place. In terms of water, provision of water, we had a whole section of the district that struggled to get water, involving about 10 communities. The district assembly, liaising together with the World Bank and the Regional Coordinating Council, we were able to provide water to these 10 communities, and now, thankfully, all of them have access to potable water. In terms of security, our district is rated the best in terms of security in the region. So I am quite optimistic that we have done very well, and we will continue to do what we need to do. We are not perfect yet. There are still room for improvement, and that is what this term holds for us, to take advantage of opportunities available and be able to meet those performance contracts, especially the key performance indicators therein.
All right. And thank you very much, Honorable Nkum, for speaking to us. We wish you all the best in your new role.
Thank you. Thank you. And it is good to know that as at Thursday, I was the only district chief executive in the country.
Yes, and that's why we've spoken to you this morning. I'm sure we'll be engaging in the days and months ahead. And that's Honorable Nkum there. Clearly, he seems to understand and know his stuff in terms of...
He failed to inform you that he's the president of NALAC.
NALAC, he's the president of NALAC. Okay, yes. Great. So you're optimistic that a lot of the MMDCs will go through?
Yes.
Do you have a projection? Are you able to anticipate areas where you know that maybe there will be no success, and so you have plans for that? Well,
it's a bit early, but we should also take into consideration the fact that there are some assemblies where our friends from the other side dominate. So sometimes it impedes the smooth endorsement of some of these nominees. Except that some places too, they've come out, even though we appreciate that they dominate assemblies, they've come
to generally support whoever has been nominated.
Yes. But it's too early to maybe give you a picture that maybe 80% will go through. We are hoping, after all, 128 of such persons were renominated. And we're hoping that they're familiar with their assembly members, they know the work they've done, and all things being equal, they will give them the pass mark. For the new ones who are coming in, some are very popular, some people are hailing the appointment by the president, so we also believe that they should sail through. Obviously, it will be a bit optimistic to think that every assembly will endorse the...
Oh, certainly not all the 260, but maybe you can say what? Maybe 200? 230?
I don't want to be quoted. That you come back and say that you said 230
and now it's only 100. I get that.
But they are working. They are appealing to assembly members. They are going to them, and the easier ones will be done within maybe 10 days. The more difficult ones, maybe there will be more consultation
before the process begins, just to ensure that the individual goes through.
Yes.
All right, we have some tweets, and when I come back to you, I'll ask you about what the big agenda is going forward for election of MMDCEs. But let me read some of the tweets that have come through. It says the issues about the rioting NPP folks is about Edidija, meaning some supporters have been left hungry. I'm not a doomsayer, but I can say that we should expect some more of this in the days ahead as effort is made to get approval. That's from Prince Henry in Koforidua. Farouk from Tamale writes, good morning. It would be good if stakeholders can agree on the election of our MMDCEs to strengthen our democratic dispensation at the local level and to curb the unnecessary agitations among party supporters. Farouk, you didn't say specifically if you were just looking for a general election or the election of MMDCEs on partisan basis. It would be good to hear your view about that. Aziz from WA writes, "This disappointment in some parts of the country is a manifestation of the poor governance by the government. Indeed, the rejection of the Yendi MCE shows that the president didn't work with the committee report." And those were some of your messages. Thank you very much. Care to comment on the Yendi MCE rejection? Are there any peculiarities within that area that meant that the individual wouldn't go through? They point to the committee report.
Not necessarily. I think he was renominated. So he's an incumbent. And for these things, sometimes some persons may be dissatisfied with how he's run the place. Some persons will think that he should carry on. And he's gone through the first one. We're hoping that he will still do more consultation
so that the second one will go through.
And that should be it.
Okay, let's speak to the head of the NDC's legal team, Abraham Amaleba, who joins us live now. Good morning to you, Mr. Amaleba. Many thanks for speaking with us. So now that the MMDCEs have been appointed and the list has been made public, what does the NDC see as the way ahead in terms of local governance?
Good morning, Joshua. Your question is what is the way forward for who?
I'm asking, what do you see as the way forward for local governance now that these MMDCEs, after quite a long wait, have been appointed?
Well, better late than never. This has taken so long in coming. The assemblies were without MMDCEs for close to 9 months.
But Honorable Amwa has addressed that their role is not coterminous with the president based on the presidential transition. They have a 4-year term and they were just waiting out their term in as much as they were not taking key policy decisions. They were administering the assemblies nonetheless.
Perfect.
The government disputes that position.
Whose tenure of office ended 4 years. And so you had a situation where those assemblies were without DCEs. And
but why do you say they were without DCEs? They were acting. Why do you say they were without DCEs? They were acting.
No. So they were without DCEs, and also a statement from the Chief of Staff saying that some people should continue to act, but they can't take some key policy decisions. And I thought that was a retrogression. And so if you have them now nominated and they are going through the process, I think that we are getting back to normalization, and that is how I see it.
Now, one of the things being said is the president still has on his plate to try and push through the agenda of the election of MMDCEs. There's a view that this recent appointment process has made stronger the argument that we have the MMDCEs elected on a partisan basis, so that we don't also see some of the agitations or disagreements. The election will be done, whoever triumphs comes out of it, and we move on.
We cannot use the inability of the president to appoint MMDCEs as a reason for calling for the politicization of our lower strata of our governance. I don't think that the inability or the lack of capacity by the president to do this nomination is enough to then politicize our lower structures. Our lower structures are places that you would expect that you will not politicize those structures, and then at the district level you have all people, irrespective of political divide, can approach the district assembly for your needs. Now, you have a situation where people are calling for the politicization of that structure. That old lady, who normally would have woken up and go to the district coordinating director's office or the planning officer's office to, as it were, have his needs addressed, will now feel that that assembly
is an assembly for a certain political party, and that when he goes there, he will not be listened to. And so, if it is not broken, why do you fix it? The president's inability, in this case, to do this appointment without any hiccups was as a result of his own method used in appointing the DCE. The president is the sole appointer of this DCE. The reason for which he has decided to constitute a committee to do vetting and interview people, and then have those persons who would have performed well sidelined, and then new people are brought in, is the doing of the president, which has resulted into what we are seeing, this agitation.
But Mr. Maleba, I think it may seem unfair. Hold on, sir. Hold on, sir. Just a quick point. It may seem unfair to say that it is the process the president adopted. What's wrong with being consultative? What's wrong with being a bit more thorough than maybe he may have been in the first term?
So that's where I'm coming to. If you, Jifa, is called for an interview, and you go for that interview and perform very well to the satisfaction of the interviewer, now you, the person who has gone for the interview, would have a legitimate reason to expect that the job will be given to you. You have that legitimate expectation. Particularly when a list has already come out indicating that you were the one who was chosen. These people have their followers. Naturally, when the disappointment comes after you've been slated or you've been selected after the interview, clearly people will vent out their frustration. So I'm saying that it is the modus operandi, the method used. What stopped the president from saying we have 260 district assemblies? Each week, we're going to use 9 months, and this method I'm trying to outline will also not be far from the 9 months. He used 9 months to do the appointment. What stops him from, say, using each week to deal with, say, 10 district assemblies in his attempt to appoint those people to the assemblies? Why would he then constitute a committee? That committee does its work. People have legitimate expectation because they perform well, and list came out, and then you would think that you will not have these agitations. These agitations were brought upon by the president's own method of choosing the assembly, the MMDCEs.
Okay.
All right, Honorable.
Yes, I need to respond.
Yes.
I think that my good friend has not really appreciated the issues. For instance, President Mahama did not appoint any committee as far as we are aware. But there were agitations after he made the announcement. It wasn't based on any list. A whole regional chairman of Greater Accra, Adekuka, said that it was the narrow interest, ethnic base, etc., and that he should look at the list again, and that they have even submitted a position to him that he has to
That was
consider.
in 2013.
2013. And was that based on the list? Secondly, he's talking about inability. President Mahama appointed his, or nominated the MMDCs in July. He was in office in January. Was that inability? When he had taken over from Professor Mills in 2012, yes, about 6 months to the elections. So he should appreciate these things very well before he comes out this way. Otherwise, he contradicts himself. Obviously, he's against election of MMDCEs. We can come to that.
Yeah.
I would state my position strongly.
So
we need to elect MMDCEs.
Okay, so he talks about the election of MMDCEs on a partisan basis being a danger at the local level because
as we speak,
ordinary people may not feel.
As we speak, literally every DCE has his political roots.
They have a constituency or a following.
There are some who were party officers who have been nominated to become chief executives. Are they not partisan? But this situation is only one party. I mean, if you take even my constituency, the most interesting thing about it is that the presiding member in the assembly in my constituency is the constituency chairman. He won his electoral area elections, came to the assembly, and he was elected presiding member. He's still the chairman of MPP in the constituency.
So your view is that a lot of the assembly is constituted by a lot of elected officials at the political party level.
Yes.
So really, what are we hiding? So whether we elect on a partisan basis, it doesn't deviate from what we have now.
His argument is that the old lady cannot walk to the office of the chief executive because we have been nominated by a party.
And she may not be a member of that party.
I'm saying that
isn't that a real danger?
No, even my chief executive has been renominated. He was the second vice chairman of the party. And he served 4 years. And
so he's a known party individual. He's a known party individual.
Doesn't mean that people don't go to the assembly, or those who go to the assembly are only MPP members. We have to be realistic. All across the world, people vote on partisan lines to elect their chief executives. Now, the irony is that even the unit committee members are elected. Assembly members are elected, but chief executives are not elected. Now, you are saying that if we try to do that on partisan basis, the local governance system will break down. And I'm saying that at the assembly level, everybody knows which party any person belongs to. Has it broken out local governance system?
All right, just a quick response from from Abraham Maleba. So, Abraham, is it that the NDC is worried that this is like the last thing in the whole local governance setup that was put in place by the NDC, and you don't want to lose that? Maybe that's why members of the NDC are opposed to having elections at a partisan status at that local level.
We think that the current arrangement has served us well, where at the local level we are all united, and that people don't see themselves when they go to the assembly as an NDC woman has come. DCE, the woman sitting at the reception is an NDC woman. You don't hear those things.
But you may not hear it, but the individuals leading these assemblies are known party individuals.
To go to the district assemblies because, yes, the person there is voted for on partisan basis. I am saying that we all know each other's party affiliations. I'm sure there's somebody who knows Jim Mensah's party affiliation. But because it is not done in the open, that's the difference. Because it is not done in the open, and because the person who is occupying the seat was not there based on open partisan election, he feels a certain sense of responsibility towards all and sundry. And so he does not see his being in that office being tied to his party affiliation. And so his sense of responsibility is to the entire people in the community, and for that matter, the district. That is where the argument is coming from.
But honorable, but Mr. Maleba, we have members of parliament. You may be in an area where it is, an NPP member of parliament. If I have an issue, nothing stops me from calling the individual. Yeah. The individual is my member of parliament. He's responsible to me as per holding that role. So it then questions the argument you're putting forward.
Certainly. You've made my case.
That is not true. That is not entirely true. That members of parliament, the constituents, who are openly identified with one political party, easily are comfortable walking to the member of parliament who doesn't belong to their political party. You've not found out how people feel uncomfortable doing that. So in any case, the district assembly, the assembly members will tell you, when you ask them, are you an NDC assembly member or an MPP assembly member? You know their response. They always say that I am here for all and sundry. That is the spirit. That is what we are talking about. At the lower level, you do not politicize it. And you realize that it wasn't the NDC alone that was against it. Chiefs, National House of Chiefs, who are in the community with the people, bought into the same argument and said, no, this has served us well. Why are we interested in politicizing every structure of our government? And for that matter, there shouldn't be elections based on a partisan basis at the district level. Was it only the NDC? So I think that if we think that we want to do some elections at the district level, we can still do it, but not on partisan basis. We can still have people independently coming out to give themselves up for elections, and people can vote for them. But to make it partisan is where I have a problem.
All right. Thank you very much, Abraham Amaleba, Director of Legal Affairs for the NDC. Quick one, Honorable, then we take a break and then we come
Very well.
back.
He's made his points, except that I don't agree with him. Even if you say at the lower level we should not politicize the system, I'm a member of parliament. I belong to the lower level. I have to deal with them every day. Once I'm able to get there, I have to deal with them. I'm at the lower level.
So people come to you. It doesn't matter whether they are MPP.
You'll be surprised how I even engage the NDC persons. Some of them, even office holders. And then those down. And in any case, if I lobby for a road to be made, is it made for only MPP people? If I lobby for a school to be built or a clinic, whatever, it's for the general community. Do I say that those who hold MPP cards are the ones who should patronize or who should have access to the facility? It's for everybody. So if you think that because I have been elected on the ticket of MPP, everything I do will serve
for MPP people.
Yeah, I mean, it means it's a misconception. You are not appreciating the issue very well. It's the same way that if a DCE who has been elected knows that in the next 4 years he will go for elections again, he will not say that I'm only looking at MPP people, because it's not only MPP people who vote for him come the elections. And how are you going to run your district if you think that you can go this way? It's rather when you are appointed that you think that you owe your appointment, your everything, to the appointing authority. And in which case, they may complain, they may write petitions. If the president,
and you are not obliged to really do anything about it.
If the president says that this is the person I want, what happens to the electorate? But here is a situation where he has to account to the electorate because they will vote for him. And there's no way any person is going to say that I will only concentrate on this side because they are the only ones who are going to vote. Everybody will vote. And you want the highest votes as much as possible. We will not say that once I get 49%, I'm okay. So he has to appreciate these things. I mean, at the end of the day...
But strongly, will the president push further? Because I think now the argument has been resurrected, and many are thinking maybe we have to fix this soon.
Yes, as far as we at the ministry are concerned, we went very far based on the instructions of the president to get MMDCEs elected, to the extent that the EC submitted CI to Parliament for a referendum on this matter, and it was passed. And so at the last moment when our friends had their major press conference and more or less telling their followers that go and vote against it. Then the president said we should build consensus.
Okay. So are you trying to do that again? Will you try and do that?
We have put it on the table again.
Put it on the table again.
Indeed, we are asking the major stakeholders to bring their position paper. As far as we are concerned, we've done enough consultation and everything. The records show we consulted Christian Council, Muslim Association, the parties, etc. So now they should bring their formal positions. He referred to the chiefs. The chiefs were rather worried that if we scrap the appointment system, we scrap the government appointees in the assembly, that means that they may not have a say or a nominee in the assembly, because based on the 30% representation, they are
chiefs get a rule.
Yes. That is what was their
so that's something to look at going forward.
Because their position was, are you scrapping that 30% appointee system? If you are scrapping it, how do we get involved in the system? It's something that we really need to look at. So there's still work to do, but I think that eventually he ended up by saying that we should do the elections, but it should not be partisan.
It should be independent. All right, so the jury is still out on that. We take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk a bit about SAL.
education. With ATL, you can never be out of style. ATL, bringing fabric to life.
As young girls, we had dreams. Dreams to be a star, dreams to stand tall amongst our peers, and dreams to be Ghana's most beautiful.
Here we are as young girls, evolved into ladies and serving as role models to many.
It has been a long journey, from the audition stages through to the live performances and eviction shows.
We must say, it's been such an experience. From the low moments and the high moments, we have enjoyed every bit of this learning curve.
From 16 down to 6 of us, the time for one of us to wear that prestigious crown is here, and we are super excited.
It is the grand finale of Ghana's Most Beautiful 2021, the most anticipated finale, and I can say that the ladies and I are super ready.
Yes, they are 6 beautiful, confident and smart ladies poised and ready for this year's Ghana's Most Beautiful finale. Come see your ladies battle it out for the crown, the car and a life of luxury and fame. Join us at the National Theatre of Ghana on the 3rd of October 2021 at 8 p.m. sharp. Tickets are going for 50 Ghana cedis. It's an all-ladies affair as we have 4 of Ghana's songbirds, Abiana, Sina Soul, Sefa, and Adina. Don't miss this spectacular night with amazing music and dazzling performances from our final 6 ladies. Push your favorites to be crowned by dialing *713*13# or download the TV3 Reality app on Google Play Store or Apple Store now and vote. Ghana's Most Beautiful.
Rediscovering true beauty.
And is sponsored by Lavon's Tomato Mix, Camel now from Kerex, Freedom from Casaprecon, GTP, Darling Lemon Drink, Airtel Tigo's Big Time Bundles,
Lufat,
Deluxy Acrylic Paint, Heaven Black Mosquito Spray and Coil, and Napa Mackerel,
Geisha, Close Up,
Ayo Insurance, Fan Milk Nutri-Day Yogurt, and supported by
You're welcome back, and some of you have sent your messages. Let's take a look at them. This one says the general silence in Ghana upon the announcement of the MMDCEs is an indication that His Excellency the President is a man of wisdom, and that's from Suleimana Damba from Tamale. This one from Johnny at Sunyai says, I disagree with Honorable Amwa that the MMDCEs should continue to be in office because they were not appointed in January like the president. So is he telling us that if the government is out of power, the MMDCs will continue to be in office until a new government is put in place? Well, Johnny, that happened in the case of the NDC when Professor Mills came to office. So it's not exactly unusual that they would continue in their role until things change. This one from Ismaila Ali says, please ask the honorable member then why tell the MMDCs to act if their tenure has not ended? I think that issue hasn't been cleared up. Can you quickly clear that up?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the Chief of Staff, one, was reminding them that you are still in office. 2, the President has had his second term. He's still arranging his executive. So once you're there, you don't even have a minister. So don't take policy decisions. And I think that is fair.
Were they able to take financial decisions, for instance, spending? Because that was also a criticism that their releases had not come.
If she quoted 14.5, and 14.5 is talking about policy. It says, before the assumption of office of the incoming minister, a person so appointed by the president shall be in charge of the relevant ministry, but shall not take a decision involving a policy issue except the Ministry of Justice, where the Solicitor General shall be in charge of the ministry. That's what she quoted. More or less saying that even your minister who is acting now, not knowing whether he will be the one to be nominated, has been asked not to take policy decisions. So you are the district level, you can run the place because your time is not up, but you don't have to take policy decisions as required under the Presidential Transition Act. That's how I see it. You will be surprised. In May, the news came out that all of them have been asked to go home. It took the regional minister, Greater Accra, to make a public statement that indeed nobody has been asked to go home. They have to stay on based on the president's directives. So people should just look at these things very critically. Sometimes people hear others saying it,
and then
they repeat.
Latch onto it.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
This one from Kwame says the non-partisan nature of the district assemblies has some good in it. During the last district assembly elections in my constituency, Dom Kwabenya, our electoral area, a typical NPP-dominated area, the electorate voted overwhelmingly for an individual who is a known NDC constituency executive. If it were strictly partisan, a strictly partisan affair, he would never have won.
But if the area is dominated by MPP and the NDC person wins, it's not strange, except that he has to work with the MPP people. You understand?
Yes, but if we have a partisan situation, that opportunity may not be there.
That he cannot work with the other people.
That he may not even be elected. Because,
of course, he's the majority. He's the majority who will carry
and I think that's the concern, because if it happens like this in a place like Dom Kwabe, and I live in that constituency, it's very MPP. Yeah. But if the presiding member is an non-NDC person, it allows for the collaborations that typically we would not see.
I also live in Domi Kwabenya, Parako Estates. If you're talking about electoral area basis, there may be an electoral area which is NDC dominated, but the whole constituency may be MPP biased. But some electoral areas may be NDC dominated, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you think that is a virtue, if you think that is something that is positive about it, fine, why not? We can discuss it. That's why I'm saying that some people think that for the unit committees and the assembly members, we can still let it look non-partisan, because as far as I'm concerned,
they are partisan.
It's partisan.
Okay, you were telling me that maybe an approach we could adopt just to start on a certain path would be election of the mayors for the big cities.
Yes. So that people will know that, it's nothing strange and mysterious, in the sense that if, let's say, AME is headed by a person whose government is not in power, he can still run the place. And people should cooperate with him if they think that he's doing a good job. And for politics, I see it as power sharing, not winner takes all that we are all complaining about. President sits in his office, he announces 260. Whether you like it or not, almost 100% belong to his party. Now he opens his up, others come in. It's power sharing. Whether you are in power or out of power, you are also helping running government, and people will even see whether you're capable of delivering. Because stock is cheap. If at the end of the day you are running who, and you run it very well, everybody knows that, yes, and even out of power, see how the person is running the place. And you will not come giving excuses that it's government which is sabotaging you, that's why you are not delivering. Your skills will show. And if it comes to common fund, you have to, everybody qualifies. You don't say that because it's an enclave of the opposition, I'm not sending common fund there. As we speak now, if you go to places where MPP doesn't dominate, the districts are headed by MPP persons. And some of them, they've run them very well. The world has not come to an end. So we should appreciate some of these things. And as you rightly said, if we think going wholesale will make people apprehensive, you might as well start on a smaller scale. The mayors, big cities, big towns. That's what I agree. Such places, let's do the elections.
And then see how it goes.
Except that our friends will complain. Almost all the big cities will be dominated by
MPP people. So before we wrap up, sir, we need to talk about SAL, that's Central Kofi Akpaku Likpe Lolobi.
Yes.
Now, it's emerged that they have an assembly, but it's not been becomes fully commissioned,
yes.
and then there remains the issue of them not having representation in Parliament. Please clear up for us.
Yes, you have become a chief advocate for local governance. I'm really impressed today. Some of your sound bites, I wish I could even recollect them and then use them very well. Probably I'll ask for the tape and then pick some of your sound bites.
Thank you,
but
sir.
I would advise that as much as possible, we should not refer to SAR again. It's now Guan District.
It's now Guan District.
It's Guan District. So
but the constituency, the parliamentary constituency, doesn't sit there, does it?
No,
it's complicated.
Yes, a bit complicated. I agree with you. With the creation of a new region, the electoral areas fell under OT, and then so they were also under Jasikan. We had a Jasikan district where those who are now Guan districts, 13 electoral areas, they were part of Jasikan. So Jasikan was 33 electoral areas. 13 were taken out to form the Guan district. You understand? So we went through the motions, parliamentary motions, LI, EI by the president in September. LI was sent to parliament in October. By 9th November, the LI had matured. So we now had Guan district. Now, during President Kufuor's first term, he's created a lot of districts. But he has been very careful not to create a district which would push the AC to create a constituency. None, except the Guan district. The moment he created a Guan district, means he has separated Jasikan. He has taken some electoral areas from Jasikan to form the Guan district. And because they also needed an MP to represent them, it meant that the EC would create a constituency for them. Unfortunately, by the time the creation of a district matured in November, that was the day Parliament was rising to go and campaign. So EC could not create a constituency before the elections. In their own wisdom, then they said, then you should vote for presidential, but don't vote for parliamentary. It has its implications, but that's the EC side of it. I remember very well, after elections, the EC attempted to bring CI to Parliament to create Guan constituency. Some of us drew the attention to the fact that when you bring an instrument to Parliament, it takes 21 sitting days. The number of days that we have before 7 January, you will not have the 21 sitting days. And whatever you do by 7 January, what you've submitted will be null and void.
So it has to be resubmitted in the new Parliament.
In the new Parliament.
And is that on course?
So let me tackle the aspect of Guan district really fully in place.
Okay.
We have the Guan district, we have the electoral
I understand the assembly members, yes.
But there should be government appointees. The president should also put in a 30% as required. And then nominate a chief executive who would then be endorsed by the assembly. And once the list has come, we expect this one to also happen. But the minister, if you heard him, he is more interested in the structures. Send people there, local government service, post people there. Where would the office be? Where would the departments be? As we wait for the president to make the announcement. Because it's the same people who say that, you have announced chief executive, he doesn't have a place to sit. You have announced chief executive, he doesn't have a place to sit. You have announced an assembly, you have inaugurated an assembly, there are no staff members. So
for you at local government, it's more about having the structures in place before the formal ceremony of announcement and inauguration and everything.
Yes. Otherwise,
but we have to now resubmit the instrument for the constituency to the House later.
It's for the EC
to decide when.
It's for EC to submit it. But if you look at decided cases, if you create a constituency within a term, it takes effect from the next term.
So it makes no sense to submit it now.
Well, whatever time EC will submit it, it will go to the 21 sitting days if tutors don't reject it. But you then say that you created the Guan constituency, assuming they want to name it Guan. But the Guan constituency can only take effect from 2025. And that's what the Supreme Court has said. And
so
it makes sense.
Based on the decided precedents.
Yes, the cases. It makes sense. Otherwise, a government comes into power, finds a way to create more constituencies if it thinks that it's
they
not...
need to shore up their base. Okay, so this just really to avoid a perception of gerrymandering as well.
Otherwise, if the court decides today that AC can create one constituency and it should take effect, the government may end up creating more districts, which will push AC to create more constituencies. And it will be gerrymandering.
All right.
That's why the Supreme Court in its wisdom has said that if we interpret the Constitution, because it happened in 2012, 45 constituencies were created in March.
And there were accusations that
they were created in March.
Yeah.
So, for instance, I was MP for a Bree Nsawam constituency.
And that was divided.
It was divided. So, in Nsawam, more or less, didn't have an MP. Because I chose to be a Bree. In some more or less, until we went for the elections in 2012, December. From March to December, you couldn't say that I represented the 2 districts. But that's what we lived with. So unfortunately that for the one district, it may have to go longer. But at the end of the day, EC can decide when to create that constituency, but it will take effect in 2025.
Right.
But for the district, the minister has assured the whole country that the next few weeks, he wants everything to be in place. He sent a team, they brought him a report where we should spend. We've had meetings with the Office of Local Government Service, and they are posting persons there. And when he says that assembly has been inaugurated, we will have their departments, they have their chief executive, they have their assembly members all playing their part.